project brief for contextual studies. This is the foundation project brief. Unit 1, enable the candidate to develop a research method which demonstrates conceptual awareness, ability to interpret and evaluate, and how that can be applied in supporting your work in the studio. So Unit 1 is mainly marked through the essay tasks. Unit 4 can also hit some of the criteria and tasks as well, in terms of analysing and reflecting your own work, but they've been lumped together on this brief, so they'll be marked kind of through the journal and through your essay tasks. You'll note that Unit 1's assessment criteria are things like identify research sources. So that means, things like your bibliography. The next talk will be about how to kind of work your bibliography and other kind of finishing off essay tasks. But yeah, so the whole of the kind of program is meant to help you kind of pass this Unit 1. So once you submit all those essay tasks, you can pass that unit. If we go to the task that's currently on offer, it's task 5, comparing images. Now, the standard kind of format for the essay within art and design is this idea of comparing images. So I'm just going to have a look at these two images here in the image bank, both photographs. Often it's better to kind of interpret and analyse and evaluate images that you have a preference for, so that you kind of have a bit more of a connection to them. I mean, we talk about this idea of what you do having a kind of personal connection in the studio, and the same, there's no point in looking at images that don't kind of really get you going. But obviously within the context of the image bank, we've asked you to kind of look at these images because we know they work specifically for generating, stuff for your portfolio, and it's all aimed at, that Christmas time when you're kind of having to write your personal statement and put your portfolio together for applications. So just looking at these two images here, this is Richard Avedon. It's an image of Dorian Lee, and this is Martin Parr. This comes from a book that he made called Luxury, and obviously one's from the 1940s and one is from around 2007. I think this project came on, and just looking at the kind of similarities and differences. I think obviously the obvious similarity is they are photographs, and they're photographs of women. Avedon's image was a fashion photograph, and Avedon worked for Bazaar for many years. And Avedon was really interested in theatre, really interested in performance, and apparently when Avedon took photographs of photographers, he liked them to kind of be involved with activities. He liked the photographs to reflect the contemporary times that he felt were going on around them. So he was a photographer in New York City, which would have meant Manhattan at that time. So it's a kind of very energetic place, very kind of powerful. It would have a powerful effect on anyone living there. And Avedon wanted to reflect the energy of the city in the photographs he took. So he was very interested in the kind of gestures that he saw people making or doing in the street or just around him. And because of his interest in theatre, that kind of fed the way that he put his images together. So this image is quite theatrical. It's quite theatrically lit. There's kind of an even light, fairly even light. You can see the shadow drawn down here from the eye pencil. And so there must be kind of a light above this model, but there's also a light coming in from this side that's kind of making this face very clearly illuminated. And for me, it kind of has a bit of a story to it. She's obviously pretending to look at, or actually looking at a looking glass just here, and it just reminds me slightly of kind of Alice through the Looking Glass with this interesting sort of hat that looks a bit like bunny ears. So the narrative is kind of possibly drawn from, this is my interpretation, drawn from something that's quite theatrical. This could be someone kind of setting up for a performance, and is he saying the performance this model enacts, is that to do with how she presents herself to the world? This kind of mask, or this veneer, or this face that she puts on, is that kind of how she deals with the world? Or, this is how she prepares herself for the world. This image on the right is by Martin Parr, famous kind of documentary, would be characterized as a documentary photographer. This image comes from a book that he did called Luxury, which is about, it's made in about 2009. This image is from about 2007, and it was about documenting the extremely rich across the world. But Martin Parr made his name as a documentary photographer that photographed the very poor, and I think he was kind of criticised a lot. This is from a series called The Last Resort. It's about a town in Merseyside called New Brighton, and sometimes people thought that Martin Parr was being kind of negatively critical of the way kind of poor people behaved, if you like. He was kind of criticised for that. Sometimes I feel one of the reasons he focuses on the rich in this is to kind of address that. What Martin Parr says in an article in Drawbridge magazine is that, I've got it as a Word document which is on my CA as well, is that he selected situations where people are comfortable showing off their wealth. So this is this project Luxury. Traditionally the portrayal of poverty has been the domain of the concerned photographer. So, he's maybe referring here to the criticism he received. People thought the projects like The Last Resort were brilliant, but he was also criticised for that. But he's kind of making a political point. He's saying when the new emerging middle classes demand and receive the luxury goods that so many of us take for granted, it will put considerable pressure on the world's resources. He's worried that that all of our resources are going to be put under pressure by people kind of conspicuously consuming and displaying their wealth in this way. And obviously, a lot of people aspire to doing this. But going back to the image that's in the image bank, on one sense, this is just a slice of life. It looks like people here are kind of assembled for an outdoor concert. It's summer, but it's an English summer, so it's not particularly bright. So the lighting is kind of even. He uses a certain kind of flash. So his flash has illuminated this woman almost to the level where this woman is illuminated by natural light. But she doesn't look particularly happy, even though she's attending something that looks, it's supposed to be very lovely, I guess. And Martin Parr's ability to kind of shoot very quickly captures a kind of instantaneous moment that creates these amazing kind of dynamic compositions with the cropping of this image here. Whereas, the moment that Avedon catches is kind of very carefully set up, and he's kind of thought about, he's been influenced by theatre, whereas Parr is influenced by kind of maybe something slightly more political, or showing or capturing people that are consuming sort of high-end luxury goods. So just to sum up then, I guess these two photographers are kind of trying to reflect their own times. With Avedon's fashion images, he's trying to say something about, the energy of the city. With Martin Parr, he's trying to sort of say something about the way things are. I'm trying to bring us, I guess, little stories from situations we wouldn't necessarily be able to experience, but that he's gone out to experience. So he's kind of going out into the world and bringing that experience to the attention of a broader public, whereas Avedon is trying to sort of get into his fashion images, what he feels is going on in the outside world. So if we just look at some of the resources that are available here, these things are from the kind of websites. This is from the V&A. It's got a bit of info, background info on Martin Parr, if that's useful to you. This is from the Drawbridge magazine. and this is actually Martin Parr's words from that. And this is the New York Times article about Richard Avedon that kind of identifies some of those. These are all some of those issues I was talking about with Avedon. So these are all on MyUCA. So so the essay task, I guess, for this, that kind of concludes this part of the essay before you provide your conclusion, is that idea of comparing two artists. And I guess thinking towards the last kind of essay task, the conclusion, it's maybe thinking about how do they influence you. So that would be, in a sense, if you're looking at artists, it's important to think about artists that can kind of have an effect on you, as opposed to some that you're kind of not necessarily drawn to. And I know, the image bank is selected by the tutors, but that's just in the first case, and that's because we know kind of what's coming in terms of the application.